taking a break. The countdown clocks have started. Fight songs pass the time. The days may run together, but you know that in our mind it's always Saturday. Take me back to Saturday. Saturday. Give me those 12 Saturdays. Spot the ball. March Madness is a blast, and we love baseball games. But nothing beats the feeling of having a killer slate of games. It's always Saturday. Take me back to Saturday. Saturday. Dreaming of all Saturdays. Spot the ball. Spot the ball. Oh, college football. Sat out your day.
The small, lay a big hit and pass a kick the ball. This game is for us all. From Seattle down toward the Keys, this game is you, this game is me. Cast dogs and steer, be the tree. This game is America, so sing it loud with me. College football forever. College football forever. Downtown LA, Starkville City. 1 week you're up next, take a dip. Run the rock or let it rip. This game is America. All say, can you sing it with me?
We just stepped on her face with a hot-tail moving across her nose. Whoa, Nelly!
College football forever. College football forever. College football forever. College football forever.
College football is a year-round discussion with these two. Here's JC and Morgan. Mike Morgan of ESPN and JC Sherbert of 24/7 Sports have you covered, beginning right now.
And a good morning and welcome to another edition of JC and Morgan. Hope everybody has enjoyed maybe some time off, maybe some extended July 4th holiday, maybe some extra beach time, whatever it might be. Hopefully it is all going well, and hopefully you look at that calendar every day and you say, the countdown is on. I have it on my screen every day, JC. It makes me smile. It makes me feel warm inside. 37 days. Some of you might say that math feels a little fuzzy. Yes, I'm including week 0 because, damn it, I'll watch a bad week 0 game. And then week 1, remember, you got a great SEC Big 12 matchup on a Friday. You don't even have to wait till Saturday when Auburn travels to Baylor. The week 1 slate of games, SEC versus non-SEC opponents, is the best I've ever seen. The absolute best I've ever seen. I don't deal in hyperbole here. That's just what it looks like. We've got a lot to get to. We've got a special guest we have on every year. I just picked it up 2 days ago at the Barnes & Noble. It's the Phil Steele guy. Let's see. Camera 1. Can take 1. Camera 1. Okay. It is there. I've had Phil on for 20 some odd years, but this is his 31st edition. So 31 years ago, I didn't know who Phil Steele was. I'm not sure how many people did, quite honestly. But today in 2025, everybody knows. And if you're going to buy one magazine, and I say this all the time, by now it should be well known. I don't get anything to say this. This is just it's a plug because it's what I read. It's what most of us, I think, in the media read because we need information. And I think fans more than ever want information. And so Yeah, it's 20 something bucks. I mean, it's not cheap. I'm not gonna lie to you. You can go get the Lindy's and Athlons for cheaper, but if you want information, and that's what I don't need pictures of tailgate recipes and random cheerleaders. I'm not against these things. In a lot of ways, I'm pro all of that, but I just don't need it in my magazine to get ready for college football season. That is out, and he will join us, our annual check-in with Phil, who's out there in the Midwest, and he's pretty high on some Midwest teams. I'm sure our SEC contingent might have a bone or two to pick with Phil's predictions. But Phil will join us at the top of the 10 o'clock hour once again. As always, we are powered by Advocare, advocare.com. I am juiced up, as I always am every morning. No coffee necessary, no sugar orange juice, just Spark. That is my coffee. I've been drinking some level of Spark. You mix it in with water for 13 years, which is just a few years longer than we've had this show, JC. And then when you get a workout in, again, Gatorade, overpriced, and a ton of sugar. Rehydrate is your buddy. And you can order all those at advocare.com. You can save 20% with promo code Mike Morgan. With all that being said, and with SEC Media Days going on as we speak, I say hello to the purveyor of all those great theme songs you see. The first one reminds me of, it seems like it should be in the movie American Pie.
Yeah.
It's got an American Pie vibe. Dimer.
Oh, yeah.
Purveyor of that and the JC5 JC Sherbert.
Yeah, man. I actually watched a movie. Rarely do I sit these days and watch a full movie unless I just I like to rewatch things like our Fiver and Dimer. And you sent me one the other day, and I've got that on my list because I want to pay attention. But I was kind of having one of those nights where it was a weekend night, so I could sleep in the next day, and I was just like, let me just get me something that'll get me through the first 30 minutes so I can fall asleep. So I watched this movie called Leave the World Behind with Ethan Hawke, one of my favorites, Julia Roberts, a legend. Really good cast. It was one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
Never even heard of it.
It's on Netflix.
Okay.
It's apocalyptic, but it's like got the worst ending. It's 2 hours and 50 minutes long. I hated every single character, the kids, the wife. Julia Roberts was the most unlikable she's ever been in a role. Even Ethan Hawke got on my nerves. Everybody in the whole damn thing got on my nerves.
Wow.
The themes got on my nerves. And it started with such potential because there was this mystery, like everybody's cell phone went out, right? Oh, what's that? What happened? They never even really explain what happened. It just ends stupidly. So I wanted to start off by just giving that little thing, shout out to idiots in Hollywood that keep giving us this garbage. Because it's recycled, but it isn't. It's like a new spin on War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise, which is an old movie anyway. So on that note, like garbage, SEC Media Days to me sometimes kind of feels like that. Like just here we go again. And I did notice this year there were better questions from the assembled media, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also interesting that you have during the player parts, you have different people representing different outlets that cover specific teams, and they're there all 4 days to get content. And so you have, players getting asked about games in October, which if you think, I understand the need to get content, but it's like, what do you think about that game? Well, if he's a good player and he plays for a good coach, he probably hadn't thought about that game because every coach will tell you, you don't think, sometimes it's human nature to think ahead. Like if you got a cupcake, as you mentioned, most of the SEC teams don't in the opener, but not ahead to late October. And then, so I guess that grated on my nerves a little bit, but nothing big breaking news or anything like that. I think maybe the SEC shot its wad during meetings in May.
Yes.
Because those Destin was on fire with news and things that actually were significant changing. But still really good to hear from all the coaches. And I thought Big 12 Media Days had a lot of fireworks last week about roster construction, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, Mike. I'll have to go back because for a while, like in the 2000s, there seemed to be a pretty fair amount of good opening weekend matchups. I don't know if it compares to this or not. I'd have to go back and check it out. Some of them are duds. I mean, like, you remember that year Miami was supposed to beat Alabama, or Southern Cal was supposed to beat Alabama out. So I don't know, but we've been getting less and less. And then this season is just a blockbuster. You mentioned Friday with Auburn and Baylor. I mean, that's going to be big, really big. Thursday night, East Carolina, NC State. That's a rivalry game. They played in a bowl last year, and they got in a fight.
Mm-hmm.
And they open up with each other this year in Raleigh. I'm pretty sure our friend Tom Lukenbill could be on the call for ACC Network that Thursday. Nebraska, with a brilliant change in offensive coordinator, Dylan Raiola going to his second year. They got Dane Key at receiver, among others. They're expected to.
They're going to be better.
They are at Cincinnati. Scott Satterfield. I mean, they're not at Cincinnati. I apologize. They're playing Cincinnati at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, neutral field. Scott Satterfield's on the hot seat a little bit. There were times at Louisville, and really his entire time at App State, they were kind of giant killers. So Scottie Pippen's alma mater, Central Arkansas, plays at Missouri that Thursday night. That's going to – how many points do you think Missouri is going
47 and a half. I'm laying. Well, let me give you the complete SEC non-con slate. Well, the ones that are good, not the one you just mentioned.
Not Central Arkansas, Missouri?
Not that one, no. Missouri typically doesn't go out of its way to schedule Goliaths in the non-con.
No.
They take those 4 non-con games, and they're like, let's chalk up some dubs. But a lot of other SEC teams decided to challenge themselves right off the bat, okay? It's the premier game is going to be Texas at Ohio State. That just – do I need to say more? Come on. That's just ridiculously good. LSU at Clemson, also ridiculously good. You mentioned Auburn at Baylor, South Carolina, Virginia Tech in Atlanta, Tennessee, Syracuse in Atlanta. Kind of a doubleheader in the Benz. We're not used to seeing that. We're just used to seeing cupcake after cupcake after cupcake, and it's like, oh, can we get to week 2 now? Week 1 would almost be like a preseason game. Not this year. The SEC decided to challenge itself quite well, and it gives us all something to get very excited about right off the bat.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia's play. Oh, Alabama at Florida State's another one.
I didn't mention. I'm sorry, Alabama at Florida State. Yeah, and even the people say, well, Florida State sucked last year. They were too. Yeah. They did, but that is not a cupcake game at all. Going to Tallahassee and playing a Florida State team that whether you like Castellanos or not, he's certainly an upgrade to what they had last year. Last year got off the ground bad and just stayed bad. This is a fresh slate. I expect Florida State to be one of the more improved teams in the country. And Alabama, who Kalen DeBoer just finished his podium talk in Atlanta at SEC Media Days. Yeah, they went 9-4, and that's cause for a celebration at a lot of places. It's not in Tuscaloosa. Did you or did you not make the playoff? No? Okay, unacceptable. You will not miss it in year 2, or we will have words. And that's it all starts with don't lose in Tallahassee.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Mike. And on Castellanos specifically, he's kind of an attention getter for a lot of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a fan of most of what he's done off the field. Not a fan of quitting on your team because you're hurt and can't play. Not a fan of talking about lighting up a whole conference when you're at Boston College. Not a fan of suing. What's he do? Challenging the part of the House settlement. Like, I'm like, Thomas Castellanos must love Thomas Castellanos. That said, from a football standpoint, here's what's intriguing about him. At Boston College, under Bill O'Brien, who I believe got Thomas a lot better. I think he's a hell of a quarterback. He's one of the best ever. But what he likes to do offensively, scheme-wise, I'm not going to say it doesn't fit what Castellanos does, but what Malzahn does on offense fits a whole lot better. Think about the great quarterbacks Gus Malzahn's had through the years. They all play a lot like Thomas Castellanos. Cam Newton's the exception, obviously, but think about like Nick Marshall and how good he was in that system.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at it like, well, it's a scheme fit. You better be ready. Florida State Stadium is remodeled and pretty and done, and it's down there. So I can't just. I think Alabama talent wise is much better than Florida State.
Sure.
But I don't think Florida State's issues last year. I don't think they were a 2-10 football team talent wise. Regardless, they've had a lot of transition. It's still an attractive school, and all that. Speaking of being careful, though, I'm gonna give you two right here that toward the bottom of the league, projected bottom of the league, where there better be some careful. Let's just say careful. Mississippi State at Southern Miss, which kicks off the same time as Syracuse, Tennessee, which I don't. That game's intriguing to me. I'll actually land in Atlanta about 2 hours before that kicks off. So maybe I'll see you at a local watering hole and we'll watch it. But
sure,
it's same time as Texas, Ohio State. But we got Mississippi State at Southern Miss. Southern Miss hadn't been very good lately. They got a new coach. He came from Marshall. He's a winner. Won at Marshall, left Marshall because they wouldn't pay him. Won the Sun Belt, didn't he? Last year, yeah, Marshall won the Sun Belt and then punked out of the bowl game. He had a lot of transfer portal guys follow him to Hattiesburg. They hate Mississippi State and Ole Miss with a passion down there at what they call the Rock in Hattiesburg. You don't want, if you're Jeff Lebby with 63 new players, to be the start of the Southern Miss resurgence. Because remember, for a long time before money entered the equation and all that, Southern Miss was a pretty good, mid-major, I guess you call it, group of 5 football team. And, they're not now. I mean, Todd Monken coached there. Larry Fedora coached there. Brett Favre played there. I mean, they've had good players through the years. So we'll see what happens with that. And then up in Lexington, speaking of Mississippi State, I know I give Kentucky a hard time about their schedule because it's always 1 FCS, 2 MACs, and Louisville. It's like a combo at McDonald's. I'll have the 2 MACs and the Louisville, but this is not your mama's ordinary MAC team. The mighty Toledo Rockets, led by Jason Candle, come to town, and they went to Starkville last year and won 41-17. Kentucky sometimes will play in early season games under Stoops, even if they're very good, Mike, closer than it should be.
Yeah, I've had a couple
I'd
of
watch
those.
out for those two. I'd watch out for those two.
Yeah. Did you mention A&M, UT, San Antonio?
No.
I mean, I'm just saying that.
To me, that would be kind of more funny.
Like, I'm just saying you could schedule easier games.
Oh, I know. Yeah. UTSA has
they've been
a good coach too. Really
good coach. Like that's not the game you schedule if you just want to breathe easy for 4 quarters. I'm not saying A&M's going to lose it. I'm not putting them on upset alert. I'm just saying, if I want to schedule an automatic win, I don't put that game in week 1. So there's a lot of teams that are actually going to challenge themselves in week 1.
Can I say one thing?
Yes, you sure can.
It's not been a good Aggies. Life as an Aggie has not been good, starting with the end of last baseball season when their coach hightailed it to Texas. And then football started well, ended like A&M normally does.
Basketball lost their coach.
Basketball lost Buzz Williams and really wasn't as good maybe as the year before. Still good. Baseball was a disaster. Softball was the best team in the country and got bounced by Liberty.
Yeah.
But saving grace, if you're an Aggie, guess what happened to the Schlossnagle on the Longhorns baseball team? They got put out in their regional. Who put them out, Mike?
Oh, gosh.
UT San Antonio.
That's right. Yes.
The Roadrunners. Okay, so if you're an Aggie, because they have to feel like the Almighty is not smiling on Aggie land right now, and UT, and so you got that. That's your man. Okay, I feel better now because the Sips, they call them the Sips, they got put out in baseball and screw Schlossnagle. Let's go Aggies. Football season's here. If you lose that game to Jeff Traylor and UT San Antonio in Kyle Field to open the season, all that good feeling about the baseball game and whatever happened to baseball is out the door because the Roadrunners took you down in football.
Yeah, no, that would be really bad.
I can't
But
imagine.
it'd be an ugly day.
I think the football gods are more benevolent than that.
I actually think A&M is going to be improved. There are two teams that I think in the SEC, the number one improvement I'm looking at is Oklahoma. I think Auburn is going to be. Auburn has, for my money, maybe the best 1-2 wide receiver punch, one of the best offensive lines, and I still believe in Jackson Arnold, who didn't have a prayer with what he was left in Oklahoma last year. But I like improvement, significant improvement from Oklahoma. I like improvement out of Auburn, and I like improvement out of A&M, maybe on a lesser scale. So take that for what it's worth. We're going to take the JC5 for what it's worth because Phil Steele now 10-10, so it'll give us a little time. Clock integrity. We practice it here from time to time. We always practice the JC5. The morale of a great nation relies heavily on it, and we welcome it now.
It's time for the top topics in the sport. We bring the JC5. Number 1.
All right. So speaking of Texas and Texas A&M, this is kind of a media thing, but you know how they play the fight song when the coach walks up to the podium at SEC Media Day. So yesterday, Sarkisian walking up the podium, and you hear dun 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 dun, which for those that don't know fight songs, you may think that's the Texas fight song, but it's not. It's the Texas A&M fight song. Big deal, not a big deal. Your thoughts?
No, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Like you had one job. I don't know if you caught it this morning when Greg Sankey addressed he gets everything started. He's like the roast master. He comes up there and sets up the dais and the day ahead for media days. He mentioned the All-Star game, which of course took place in Atlanta last night. And then the second thing out of his mouth was football very often can be determined by turnovers. We had a bit of a turnover yesterday when Texas was announced and the A&M theme song played. That was an obvious mistake, and we apologize. That's when Greg Sankey feels compelled to make an apology. That tells you, yes, it's a big deal. Now, will this be remembered 3 months from now in the middle of the season? No, it's not going to matter hill of beans. But for that time, that caused major freak out.
Yeah, we're going to see this again. Let's say A&M wins in Austin this year. You're going to see this become memes. It's meme gold. Anytime A&M does something good against Texas football, you just play the clip of Sark walking out of the Aggie War hymn. I mean, it's gold. It's gold, Jerry. It's gold.
Yeah, yeah. No doubt. All right, number 2.
Number 2.
All right, Mike. So we got Phil Steele on today. I'm going to take you back because I know you go a long way back with this game. Before there was a Phil Steele. I have trouble pronouncing his name. I always want to say Phil Steele. I don't know why.
Hashtag Phil Steele.
I think it's
like something like your trainer at the gym.
Phil
Steele, bro.
Phil Steele.
Gaines, bro.
I have no problem saying Phil Mullinax or Phil Horn, but anyway, like any Phils, but Phil Steele kind of makes me feel weird.
Either that or like an adult movie star.
Phil Steele. That is a great
Phil Steele.
I think I'm gonna change my name to that in my second or fourth job. Anyway,
Steele and Dirk
Phil
Diggler.
Steele, yeah.
Boogie Nights 2.
I played the Cable Man in that movie. Anyway, what was your favorite magazine pre-Steele as athletes? Lindy's? Was it Street and Smith's? Sporting News?
Great question.
Go down memory lane and tell me.
Okay, so it was never Lindy's or Athlon. I mean, I used to read them all. I used to before the internet, and you would go into radio station XYZ, and you'd have all your prep there, your newspapers and magazines, and I'd usually have about 3 of them. But my favorites were, you just mentioned them. Street and Smith's was right up there. Sporting News was right up there. And for a while there, people will forget this one. And I worked with his son on a couple of ESPN broadcasts early on. Bob Greasy had a college football guide. Dick Vitale had a college basketball guide.
I remember Vitale.
Which I always wanted that.
I got that all the time.
Yeah, and Bob Greasy had a college football. I remember Bob was like the number 1 analyst for years on ABC. So that was my favorite. even more so than the others. But then that one got phased out for whatever reason, and I went back to my old faithful, which was Sporting News and Street and Smiths. And yeah, I picked a Lindy's or an Athlon, but it's just there's a lot of fluff in there. There's some good writers in there. Like I know I recognize some of the names that write the pieces. I just don't put them in the same level. For me, it's all about information, JC. I don't care what anybody's prediction is. I got to be honest. Like we do it for fun here. And it's fun, if you're wrong, people love to kind of point that out. And I've always said it's more entertaining when we have misses than we have hits. But honestly, I don't. And Phil does a bunch of predictions. I don't really care what the predictions are. I'm all here for the information. I don't care what the predictions are. We'll talk about them, but I need as much info as you can give me. What was that? Short circuit input. Give me input.
Johnny Five is alive.
That's what I'm looking for. And that's why I always love the Steele guide. But back in the day, those national ones, they just had a little more info and input for me than the Lindy's and the Athlon did.
Me, it's close, but I think Sporting News edges out Street and Smiths before Phil. Phil also, keep in mind too, having done the recruiting back in the 2000s for Athlon and Lindy's, because that was big for us, Rivals.com, the startup, to be in those magazines because they were very popular then. Those go to print like way before Phil is even done gathering information and talking to coaches. So that's how fortunate everybody is these days. To get that, but Sporting News probably to me just a little bit ahead of Street and Smiths, but I enjoyed all of them, man. My dad used to take me to the store like, let's get a football magazine. He called them a football magazine, and I'd keep them. I had a stack of them. It led to the madness that I live these days.
Yes.
All right,
number three.
Number three.
All right, thank you. Should college football playoff committee use something similar to the net ranking and make it public?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Like the net ranking for college basketball. Should we have a net for college football that guides the selection committee?
1,000%. And this is a hot button for me. I think we clearly do not have a good metric in college football. We have one in college basketball. Is it perfect? No. Is it the ultimate authority on what the committee picks? No. Do they use it, and is it a helpful guide? Abso-freaking-lutely. And we don't have that right now in college football. And I know who was it? Luganville mentioned, or no, Josh Pate mentioned the one that he looks at, which is an ESPN index. I can't remember which one it is. They all start running together, to be honest with you, me.
I'm not in favor of anything. I think it's the Bill Connolly's thing. Not me.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen anyone.
Too many like statistical metrics there.
Right, like
but,
you have to efficiency.
It's basically somebody's opinion in math form. But I don't really know how you do it. But I think the quad system or whatever, maybe it's not a quad system, maybe it's a different type of a sorting. They call it a sorting tool in basketball. That because that's going to help you determine strength of schedule, which should be weighed more.
The quad system to me is as good as it gets. I mean, we've had computer formulas since like the Sagarin poll in the 90s. And then the BCS used the Sagarin, the New York Times. My mailman had a computer poll. If you follow, again, I do a lot of college basketball as well, so I follow the net religiously. But it's really not that complex. The primary thing is how do you determine strength of schedule, which clearly it has eluded every person on that committee. Their brain, it doesn't compute strength of schedule. They just know 3 is worse than 2 and 2 is worse than 1. We've been over this, right? Caveman math. What the quad system does is it accounts for how good the team you played is. If you beat them on the road, you get more credit. If you beat them on a neutral site, you get a little less credit. If you beat them at home, you get the least amount of credit. So it takes into account all of those things, and that's necessary. And it just makes so much sense that why we don't have something like that. There are people way smarter than us that could devise this thing and write code for it in an hour, and it's there. So I hope that we get to that point. I don't need offensive efficiency numbers. I don't need certain metrics that really, to me, don't pass the smell test. We know college football is very unique because everybody truly has a different strength of schedule. One of my favorite things in the Phil Steele guide, and he has it again this year, is the strength of conference schedule within your own conference. So in other words, you can't compare Missouri's schedule to Florida's. They both play 8 conference games, but it's hardly the same thing. And we saw that last year. We saw that with South Carolina versus, say, Tennessee or an Oklahoma, which had a brutal schedule, versus a Texas, which had a much lighter schedule. So these are all things that can be baked in to a net formula for college football. This is not that complicated. I swear it's not.
And the people that are panic stricken about the regular season losing its luster or whatever in college basketball, which is a tournament sport, right? Not like football. In college basketball, it helps the regular season because you're sitting there. There's just another excitement when fans go into a game knowing this is a quad one opportunity, or like, okay, so this team we beat, like Texas. Let's say you beat Texas A&M, and they're on the road to play Kentucky. So that it's on the road, so it's a quad two. You're tuning it if you're a fan of a team that you need them to boost up your net or we call it field goal or whatever. Post, we'll call it the post. You needed to boost it up. You're going to have more of a vested interest in that game, just like they do now, where like we need this team to beat this team. It's going to be more universal across all of college football fandom. If fans were able to have some sort of guide rather than being at the whim of the 1980s style pollsters.
Yeah.
And I love the idea. I think you came up with it, actually, Mike.
I've been talking about it a while.
I think you were the first to give me
a smidge of credit for it. And again, I'm not saying it's going to spit out every playoff team. You're still going to have a committee. For example, let's say Arch Manning. The week leading up to the Ohio State game in Columbus, gets mono. Oh, he's out. He can't play. Texas loses on the road by 4 points without its starting quarterback and Heisman Trophy candidate. Well, guess what? The committee is going to be able to discern the difference between a full-strength Texas and one without its quarterback. So even if the net isn't able to compute that, the human beings in the room, now you can actually wake up, put your Perrier bottle aside, get your notepad, pretend like you're taking notes, and actually do something to provide a little logic to help the major computer poll. That's not hard to do either.
And they're talking about technology wiping out huge sections of our economy within 10 years. Surely there's the technology to do this. I would think. I mean, pretty easily.
It's
pretty
there.
easily. But like those jobs, you also do need humans to kind of be like, oh, wait a minute here, Johnny Five.
Yes, I will never, even though I think and we've talked about this several times, the committee needs a major facelift. And I'm not talking about Botox and things of that nature. They just need to find people that cover the sport nationally year round. I don't need former players. I don't need current administrators. I need men and women whose paycheck comes in every week and they get compensated based on following, writing about, talking about college football. That should be the committee. That's clearly far from what we have right now. Number 4.
All right, man. So Texas in the Big 12, probably the most hated school in that league for a lot of reasons, probably a lot of jealousy. They're rattling a bunch of cages in the SEC right now on the recruiting trail, Mike. Not only did they land one of the top players in Georgia, 5-star linebacker Tyler Atkinson from Grayson in Gwinnett County. The Dogs also had a really nice defensive tackle. I believe he's from Hialeah, Florida, down your way.
Okay.
Right? Your native stomping grounds. You know Hialeah, right?
I stayed away from Hialeah.
But pretty good defense.
It's more the 305, but
that's a pretty good spot. Oh, I think Hialeah is in Dade, isn't it? I thought it was in Broward.
You might be right. I thought it was in Dade, but
South
we
Broward.
can fact check
We'll
that.
figure
Either way,
that
I'm more in the 5-6-1.
I've been there before. I went there to see Armando Allen, who played running back at Notre Dame once upon a
Yeah.
time. I remember going to that high school. So they're pissing some people off
Right.
already.
Right.
Is this the big, and it's a little bit different pissing off Georgia and the SEC schools than it is Oklahoma State. Are we seeing the rise of Texas coincide with a new villain in the SEC, i.e., like Alabama, but to the nth degree because they're kind of not from around here? You know, people in the South, you're not from around here. They're not from around here. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, my thoughts are get used to it because Texas has always been a sleeping giant. And then two things happened. The timing in life is so important in everything. Had they joined the SEC 5-10 years ago, what everybody was hoping would happen last year would have happened. They would have been completely humbled. They would have been embarrassed. And the narrative would have been, yeah, they're really good and whatnot, but they're not SEC good. What happened leading up to the entrance into the league was they finally got the right coach. And that right coach used all those immense resources and got the right players. And then you combined all that and boom, playoff team the last 2 years. So this was brewing at some point. For the life of me, I could not figure out why Texas couldn't get it right. And they tried Charlie Strong, who was the flavor of the month. And they tried Tom Herman, who was the flavor of the month. And fail. Mac Brown at the end, fail to the point where they push him out the door. Now all of a sudden it's Sark. And we all know Sark has some demons in the past. And he had to go to Tuscaloosa like every other coach, Lane Kiffin, et cetera, whether you had personal issues or whether you just failed as a head coach somewhere else, you go there and it's the elixir of life. You get another chance to prove your overall strength as a head coach, and he's done it, and now Texas is humming. And I'm here to tell you, I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. So you combine that with a massive amount of financial resources in recruiting, which is a whole other show. I promised we would not talk money, NIL, portal. We're not doing it today. We're just not doing it. But let's just say Texas got a lot of it and prepared to spend it. And now they can back it up with, because it used to be JC, you're in the middle, you're in the trenches of this recruiting stuff. It used to be Texas would offer a bunch of stuff and opposing schools could say, yeah, but they don't win. I get it. Like Austin's a cool town and they got great facilities. And, once we got into the NIL world, they could pay a lot but you could always say, yeah, but they don't win. Come here and you win. Now Texas is winning. And so I think they're built for the long haul of success.
It's crazy. They were in the Big 12, 28 years. They only won it 4 times.
No, it was Oklahoma was the beast of the Big 12.
Cheese.
They were the big
Crazy.
cheese, not UT. All right, number five.
All right, speaking of programs that have ascended, that potentially could have money too, Illinois. Just your thoughts on Brett Bielema. Luke Altmaier's back. They won 10 last year, got the big bowl win. Really, expectations in Champaign are high. Over under for Illinois 9.5 this year. They don't win 10 often at all. That was significant last season.
Yeah,
as a program. So even the year they went to the Rose Bowl under the Zucker, they were 9-3, 9-4.
right.
So your thoughts?
Well, and they're another one. Big Ten schedule within the conference schedule.
Yep.
They had a weaker load. I mean, they just did. Not to take away anything. I'm a fan of Brett Bielema. I loved covering him in Arkansas. I'm so happy that he got another chance, and I'm glad Illinois is relevant. We always talk about in this show some new blood competing for big prizes. Good thing. I think they take a step back. I don't think. I look at the top 4 in that league, and I see Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, the normal 3, and I'm throwing Oregon in there as well. So at best, 5th. At best for Illinois.
Yeah,
without even looking at the schedule. You've got the schedule, I'm sure, in front of you. You're in Illinois. You know that I just can't see them finishing above any of those 4 teams.
I didn't know the schedule. They start off with my brother's alma mater, Western Illinois Leathernecks.
Go Catamounts.
But at Duke could be dangerous. That's
I said
week 2.
Sorry, Western Illinois. I'm sorry. I was
the
thinking Western
Leathernecks.
Carolina.
Leathernecks.
Yeah.
No, that's okay.
Western
So
Illinois. Where did Romo go? Where did Tony?
Eastern Illinois.
He
They're
went
the
to Eastern
Panthers.
Illinois.
Yeah, they're
Who went to
FC.
Western Illinois? Anybody?
My brother, that's the pilot.
Well, that's all that
That's it.
matters.
That's all
We
I
got a
know.
Sherbert. That's a Leatherneck. Fair
Jason
enough.
Sherbert went to Western Illinois. Yeah, his first wife was from Illinois. My second wife's from Illinois. So we love the Sherberts. Love those Illinois girls.
All right.
At Duke, Western Michigan, they go at Indiana. Now this is where it gets tricky. They did play Oregon, Michigan, and Penn State last year, but other than that, it was a little light. And they also lost to Minnesota at home.
Mhm.
But at Indiana, and then USC, and then at Purdue, but then Ohio State comes to Champaign. At Washington, that's all the way across the country. They should be a little better. Rutgers, Maryland, but at Wisconsin, Camp Randall in the middle of November. That sucks. Although they're used to it. And then Northwestern. So I'm with you, Mike. I don't know that they can quite get. They could be a better team and not have as many wins this year. So
yeah.
if they win if they win 9-10 again against this schedule, they'll be in the playoff. So.
As well they should be. And Brett Bielema will be in the discussion for Coach of the Year at that juncture for sure. All right, some people have asked, when is Phil Steele coming up? The answer is right after the break. Quick timeout. More JC and Morgan. Phil Steele, the man, the myth, the magazine, joins us next.
Welcome to Palm Casual Patio Furniture. Because we are the factory, Palm Casual has the ability to offer the highest quality outdoor furniture paired with world-class service. Since 1979, our factory showrooms have done our best to make the buying process as easy as possible for our customers. Our understanding of the many factors that go into your decision has helped us create our 30-day trial period that increases the level of comfort our customers feel during the shopping experience. Visit us in Somerville, Mount Pleasant, Myrtle Beach, and Bluffton, and online at palmcasual.com for our products in out-of-state locations. Go Gamecocks!
Hey folks, want to tell you about our friends at Titan Construction Group really quick. They're a mid-Atlantic based general contractor, specializes in retail, restaurant, and office construction. TCG strives to separate itself from other general contractors by adding value every step of the process. From project budgeting to estimation, value engineering to construction, they focus on those relationships and not the transaction. Titan builds partnerships one project at a time. Among their clients are Starbucks, Crumble Cookie, Blake Pizza, Home Goods, 15 plus years experience, based in Midlothian, Virginia, and contracted in Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. So get on their website, TitanCGinc.com. That's TitanCGinc.com. Get in touch with Brad if you're in need of a general contractor that focuses on going above and beyond for their clients. That's Titan Construction Group, a proud sponsor of the JC and Morgan podcast.
We're passionate about making sure that the Nest and Wild mattress is the best it can be. Made well and made right. Right here in Tupelo, Mississippi. So how can we do all that? Work. Hard work. And that means something. The Nest and Wild mattress is a movement. It's a pride in where you come from and where you're going. So get comfortable, because this movement is just beginning.
This is JC Morgan on the Chief Sports Network.
College football forever.
It is JC and Morgan, powered by Advocare, advocare.com for all of your health needs, workout needs, supplement needs. Go to advocare.com, delivered to your door within days. Promo code Mike Morgan, save 20%, not just today, not just on your first order, but on several orders. Everything from the Spark products, Rehydrate. Had some listeners that have used the sleeping gummies. to help them get some shut-eye. That's always important as well. Advocare.com. Visit it today. Our visit with Phil Steele has been an annual thing for years and continues. It's a tradition unlike any other. So is his magazine. This snuck up on me, Phil. The 31st edition. I always tell the story about when I got mine accidentally at a sports radio station because it went to the country station, and the country DJ is like, "Hey, Bo, I don't need this, man. You want it?" I said, "Yeah, it's a football mag. I'll take it." And I looked at it, and I was like, "Holy smokes, this is unreal." And you've been the standard ever since. So welcome aboard, and thank you for stopping by.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mike. And, back then there was, 30 magazines on the newsstands?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
now we've dwindled down quite a bit, but we're still selling strong. We actually sell more magazines now than we did back then.
Isn't that crazy? And the magazine has only gotten bigger and better and more comprehensive. I got mine at a Barnes & Noble, over 350 pages, as it were. So what I love about your magazine, I always talk about this, it's the information. Now, you do predictions as well, and we'll get into some of that, but I'll be honest with you. I'm less about predictions by anybody and more about the amount of info, which for people in our business is a major prep tool, and just for your average fan that wants to be in the know, it's terrific. So let me, as SEC Media Days are going on, I'm going to zero in on that conference first and just take a look at what you have there, because I think at the top most people agree on the big three, and it's Georgia, Texas, and Alabama. You have them in that order. Some people have flipped Texas and Georgia, but just about everybody and their grandmother has those three. Where you might differ from a lot of people is that most have LSU 4. You have Oklahoma 4. You are bullish on the Sooners this year, and you also have LSU tied with A&M at number 4, but followed by Florida, Ole Miss, Tennessee, South Carolina, Auburn, Arkansas, Mizzou, Vandy, Kentucky, and Mississippi State. So with that, my introduction to you to expand on the SEC this year as you see it.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Mike, when you look at the SEC this year. I think the most talented team might just be Texas. When you look at Arch Manning, that defense that they have, which is going to be one of the best in the country. And I like the receiving core as well as the running back core. But Texas does have to play Georgia on the road, and I think that's huge. You also have to play Florida in the Swamp, Ohio State on the road. Meanwhile, you look at Georgia, and while this year's team doesn't have the star power of those national title teams that we saw a few years back, they are loaded in talent. And I like the way that Glenn Schumann's bringing along this defense. I think they're going to be an improved defense over last year. Gunnar Stockton brings a run game possibility at quarterback. And last year they had to play Ole Miss, Alabama, and Texas all on the road. Well, guess what? This year their toughest 3 games are Ole Miss, Alabama, Texas, but they get them all between the hedges, and they haven't lost a home game in the last 5 years. So I like the schedule as far as where they get the big games. I think it's better than what they had last year, and I've got Georgia winning the SEC. You mentioned Oklahoma. I've got them as my number 1 surprise team in the country this year. And last year, there was no knocking their defense. Their defense last year held opponents to 87 yards per game below their season average, number 6 in the country. And they've got 9 or 8 starters back on that side of the ball, led by R. Mason Thomas. But offensively, they were poor. Now, why was that? Well, how about 0 returning starters on the offensive line and a receiving core that was down to your top 5 receivers? Clemson 2 years ago had a banged-up receiving core. Last year, the receiving core returned. All of a sudden, Cade Klubnik was one of the top QBs in the country. They've got a much upgraded receiving core. They've got a veteran offensive line. They bring in John Mateer from Washington State and Washington State's offense coordinator, Ben Arbuckle. They actually have an offense this year, which is something they lacked last year. I think that offense and defense, combined with the fact that last year they only had 3 SEC home games. This year they only have 3 true SEC road games. I'm looking for a much better year for Oklahoma, and I think they could go from 6-7 to making the playoff this year.
A lot of people are really high on Mateer. And I know, looking at your all-conference quarterbacks, you've got Nussmeier, Manning, Sellers, and Mateer. That's a very popular 4. Some people have Lagway very high on that, as high as number 1 is kind of the top 5 guys. Your conversations, you talk to a lot of coaches, you watch a lot of film. What was it about John Mateer that you were so high on?
Well, watching Mateer last year at Washington State, he didn't have the surrounding talent that he has here. And he's a guy that can really hurt you with his legs. Like when a play breaks down, this guy can hurt you. But he's also a very accurate quarterback and takes care of the football. So he's got a lot of positives to him. Last year he had 65%, 29 touchdowns, just 7 interceptions. And he's a guy that runs the football like a running back. So, that's going to be a unique combination that they have. And I believe, a lot of the folks knock Jackson Arnold for what he did last year at Oklahoma. But with no offensive line and no receivers, you're going to struggle. I think with this supporting cast that John Mateer has, you're going to see a really good quarterback this year.
You mentioned Oklahoma as a surprise team. What about some of the other teams that maybe you have ranked higher than most this year in the SEC? As I mentioned, everybody's got Georgia, Texas, Alabama at the top. Most people have LSU not far behind, and Oklahoma is certainly a popular pick as one of the most improved teams. Give me another team or two that you've got your eye on that could really break through this year.
Yeah, I think you have to look for starters at Texas A&M with Mike Elko. I thought Elko did wonders at Duke for 2 years, and I thought he did a great job at Texas A&M last year. They had sort of low expectations coming into the year. All of a sudden, they're playing Texas in the season final with the chance to go to the SEC title game. Now, their finish wasn't great last year, but when I went over the squad last year with Coach Elko, and we were talking about the offensive line, he pretty much had them rated middle of the pack of the SEC. Nothing special. This year, he told me that the offensive line is going to contend for the Joe Moore Award. I like that. They've got Marcel Reed at quarterback. They've got a solid defense. A lot of star players there like Cassius Howell up front of the defensive front. And, this is his second year. We know that second-year head coaches usually take a big jump. They now get their schemes integrated. They know the players, and there's a lot of good factors going for A&M. I think they could surprise some folks this year. And then, you got to look at Florida as well. I know Florida's playing that brutal schedule, as always, just like they did last year. It was interesting when I talked to Coach Napier last year. He said, Phil, I said, Coach, you're playing the toughest damn schedule in the country. He's like, at the end of the year, Phil, it might not be looked at as the toughest. And it wasn't. I didn't rate them the toughest schedule at the end of the year. They were still top 10, but not the very toughest because of the fact they beat Mississippi, beat LSU, and beat some of the teams on the schedule. If DJ Lagway is 100% healthy, and there are questions about the health coming in, but if he's 100% healthy and stays healthy all year, I think Florida could surprise a lot of folks.
Phil, kind of toward, I guess, the projection toward the bottom of the league, Kentucky and Mississippi State both have a lot of new players, a lot. And I know this makes your job hard, but I know you're very thorough. I look at those two teams, and I'd probably pick them the same way, but I have no idea what to expect. Because there's so many portal guys. There's guys from lower levels. There's guys from other schools. There's young players. In your conversations and your analysis, what do we make of Kentucky and Mississippi State this year?
Yeah, I think both teams will be improved over last year. I am not big on teams that do massive transfer or massive turnover in the transfer portal. In fact, if you look at this year's magazine, the one thing that I was getting when I was talking to all the coaches is that I like the teams that have a little bit more cohesiveness, continuity, players they brought in as freshmen that are now seniors on the team, like a Penn State, like a Clemson, like an Iowa State. Those are all teams I think have that team atmosphere. Teams that bring in a ton of transfers, I think it's tough to get that atmosphere. You look at Florida State, for example. It worked 2 years ago, but then last year, once things started going bad for Florida State, maybe that told the fact that they weren't a team, they weren't together, sort of went bad for them that year. So I think, you look at the talent. I like the talent upgrades that both Kentucky and Mississippi State have made in the offseason, but they had some ground to make up. For Mississippi State, they're going to need Blake Shapen to stay healthy all year. They were the worst team in the SEC last year. I think they're better, but they also play a tough schedule. I rate it the second toughest schedule in the country. And if you look at their SEC games, home to Tennessee, at Texas A&M, at Florida, home to Texas, at Arkansas, home to Georgia, at Missouri, home to Mississippi. Which game would you favor him in that mix there, JC?
Probably none.
Yeah, so that's why I picked him at the bottom. And with Kentucky, they also play a tough schedule. They play the number 9 schedule in the country. And, they've got home games against Texas, home game against Florida, home game against Mississippi. Those are tough. They're going to have to pick those up. Now, Mark Stoops has done it before, but we'll see if he could do it again this year.
Phil, one of the things that I have, I won't say stolen because I always give you credit, borrowed from you over the last couple of years that I use incessantly on shows such as this is your conference rankings in terms of strength of schedule just in conference play. Because I think the committee does a lot of things that they just don't do very well. And certainly one of those is they have no idea the difference between, for example, a Missouri schedule last year and an Oklahoma schedule last year. In their eyes, well, both teams played 8 games. They are very caveman math-like. They don't see the intricacies of the schedule. We talked about it with Illinois last year compared to some of the teams in the Big Ten. You actually do a chart that ranks the conference schedule amongst the 16 SEC teams. So with that setup, give us the biggest differences between one team or another team's 8 games in the SEC versus the teams at the bottom with the weakest slate.
Yeah, and I think you take a look at the 2 teams that came over from the Big 12 last year, Texas and Oklahoma. And I thought they were actually a lot closer talent-wise than their records were last year. Oklahoma played arguably the toughest schedule in the SEC, and they do it again this year. Their lightest game the entire year is Missouri. There's no Kentucky, no Mississippi State, no Vanderbilt, no teams like that, not even Arkansas. They're playing Texas, Alabama, LSU, 3 of the top teams right out there, Tennessee, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Auburn. Meanwhile, you go to the very bottom, Texas gets to play Mississippi State, Kentucky, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and they're only playing one of the real big boys. And when I say the real big boys, I'm talking Texas, Alabama, LSU, and Georgia. And they play Georgia on the road. And that's the only game they'll be an underdog in SEC play this year. So you take a look at those 2 teams. Oklahoma was given the killer slate in the SEC. Texas was given a real good one, as was Missouri last year, as you mentioned, Mike. And I think that really helped record-wise with all those teams.
Yeah, it's a talking point in terms of, I think it's the biggest challenge conference commissioners have today is how do we spit out, whether it's an 8-game in the SEC or a 9-game in the Big Ten, how do we spit out an equitable schedule? And you have to do some guesswork there because you can't project how some teams are going to do. But I think there's certainly room for improvement there. Nationally speaking of the Big Ten, the last 2 years, it has not gone unnoticed. The SEC has not had a team in the national championship game. And it looks like based on your preseason top 40, I see Penn State 1, Clemson 2, Notre Dame 3, Texas 4, and then Ohio State 5. You've got 4 Big Ten teams in the Big Ten, in the top 10 rather, including Oregon and Michigan. So safe to say there's the possibility that the SEC might not have a team in the title game again. And I know you're very high in the Big Ten Conference this year.
Yeah, and there is definitely that possibility. And I think when you take a look at the teams, go back and take a look at Texas, for example. They lose 4 offensive linemen off last year's squad. Ohio State loses 4 offensive linemen. I like teams that have a veteran offensive line. Penn State actually has my number 1 rated offensive line coming into the year. And remember 2 years ago, Michigan, they had a lot of players turn down the NFL, opted to return, and they had a senior-laden group, and they won the national title. And then last year, Ohio State, they usually lose 15 draft picks. Well, they didn't last year. All those guys opted to return. They wanted to beat Michigan, for crying out loud. None of them had a pair of gold pants. And while they didn't beat Michigan, they won the national title because they had all that talent returning. I think that's the case with Penn State this year. It's a homegrown team. All these guys were recruited as freshmen, and a ton of them are seniors this year. Drew Alar at quarterback. You've got Singleton and Allen at running back. I think it's the best running back core in the country. You not only have those 2, you've got 2 really up-and-coming guys in Corey Smith and Quentin Martin, who are among the top running backs coming out of high school. They're just waiting in the wings. They'll be the next great duo at Penn State. That's a deep unit. My number 1 rated offensive line in the country. Drew Shelton at left tackle. They got Ione at left guard. And then defensively, they're always solid. And they bring in Jim Knowles. Now, Jim Knowles is not going to improve the defense. If he can just keep them as good as they were last year under Tom Allen, they'll be solid. And they've got Danny Dennis Sutton back at DE, Zane Duran at defensive tackle. I think they're loaded throughout. So Penn State's that veteran, senior-laden team, solid on the offensive line, veteran quarterback. And that's why I picked them number 1. First time in 31 years in the magazine, Mike, that I've picked them number 1 in the country.
Wow. I don't think you're going to be alone in that. I think a lot of people think, if not this year for James Franklin, then when? When do you start winning those big games against the elite in your conference? Because if you do that, you got a chance to beat anybody.
Yeah, and they've been close last couple of years, almost. And I think this is the year they break through, Mike.
Let's turn our attention to some of the teams. I mentioned the teams you like in the SEC to be most improved. What about nationally? What about outside the Southeastern Conference? Some teams that could have some major breakthrough years. Who's this year's Indiana, for example?
Well, if you go to the big, it's going to be tough to get at Indiana. Now, Indiana was poor. They had like 3-4 wins for 3 straight years, and all of a sudden we're making the playoff. I don't know if we're going to have a team do that this year, but there are some teams that you don't normally talk about in the playoffs. My best team is Oklahoma, coming off a 6-7 year. Of course, naturally, everybody knows Oklahoma. I think when you look at Illinois with Brett Bielema, I was not blown away with Illinois last year. Yes, they were 10-3, but at the end of the year, I'm like, were they really? I mean, the South Carolina game, we got to be honest with you, it surprised me that they beat South Carolina. I thought South Carolina was a better team than Illinois coming in. It surprised me they won that game. However, this year, he's got 19 returning starters. He's got practically the entire unit back. His offensive line is loaded with NFL caliber guys, defense loaded with NFL caliber guys. This is a much better Illinois team than they had last year at 10-3. Now, they do have to play Indiana on the road, which isn't easy. They play Ohio State at home, and they play at Wisconsin. But this is a team that could very easily make the playoff this year. And they were close last year, though, at number 16 in the country at the end of the year. I'd keep your eyes on Illinois. And remember, last year, their 7th game of the season, they played the defending national champs, Michigan, at home and beat them. This year in the 7th game, they play the defending national champs, Ohio State, at home. We'll see if they can pull one out there.
Phil, the Big 12, I don't even know why people predict the Big 12 because it's unpredictable. But we do have, I think, a game between 2 contenders in Dublin, Ireland coming up in week 0 with Iowa State and Kansas State. How do you see that thing shaking out? Who's maybe, like last year, nobody thought Arizona State would do that. Who's this year's Arizona State in that league? Are you buying Texas Tech? Just kind of talk about the Big 12. To me, it's highly entertaining. That league's highly entertaining.
Yeah, I think there are 8 teams that have a shot of winning the Big 12.
Wow. 8. Wow.
And you look at Baylor, Utah, Iowa State, Arizona State, Kansas State, Texas Tech, TCU, and even BYU. I know they're losing their quarterback, but I like what they have coming back at quarterback. And the Retzlaff last year wasn't overwhelming. He wasn't the reason BYU was winning. They had the overall team, and they've got the team back this year. So I think they've got 8 teams that have that chance. Now, I think maybe the best teams, the most talented teams, might be Texas Tech, Kansas State, and Arizona State. But I picked them 4th in the league, and you're probably scratching your head wondering why. But it goes back to what Mike talked about, and that is the schedule. Of those 8 teams, Arizona State has to play Baylor, Utah, Iowa State, and even Colorado. I mean, we all think Colorado's going to be down this year, and they will, but that's going to be a tough out on the road as well. That's a tough road schedule for them. Kansas State has to play, as you mentioned, Iowa State in Dublin. They play Baylor on the road, and they play Utah on the road. Those are all tough places to win. And Texas Tech, Joey McGuire's had a great record at home. He's 15-5. He's only 6-10 on the road. They've got to win at Utah, at Arizona State, at Kansas State. So those are some pretty tough games. Meanwhile, you look at the 3 teams I picked at the top. Baylor's road games this year in the Big 12 are Oklahoma State, Cincinnati, Arizona, and they do play TCU. So that's a pretty manageable slate if they take care of business at home. The same thing with Utah, which would be a vastly improved team. They were my favorite to win it last year. Injuries, quarterback situation, close losses, all added up. Kyle Whittingham told me it's his best offensive line he's had in his 21 years as head coach there, and he's had some really good ones. They bring in Devin Dampier at the quarterback spot. They're always solid on defense. And you look at their road schedule, Kansas, West Virginia, they only have 4 road games in the Big 12. 5 of them are at home. They get most of the big boys at home. I think they're a threat. And even Iowa State this year, Cincinnati, Colorado, Oklahoma State are their road games. So I think those 3 teams have the best schedule. And I think at the end of the year, that's going to be the driving factor as to who wins the Big 12.
Yeah, I'm with you on Utah. That's a mulligan year. That was so uncharacteristic for Coach Whittingham, which has been one of the most consistent programs in college football. I think they get back. They got a juicy matchup early in September against Texas Tech. It's a home game. I believe it's week 3. That will tell us a lot about the kind of the hierarchy of that league. That brings us to the ACC. Everybody and their grandmother and their grandmother's grandmother from the dead are picking Clemson. Clemson, I'm looking at your rankings, and you've got them clearly the most talented team in the conference. What else is there to get excited about? Miami was exciting until they wet the bed against Syracuse. There's no Cam Ward there. Florida State hopes to bounce back from a 2-win season. Can SMU be a great story again? And then what? What are we looking at with the Atlantic Coast Conference in 2025?
Yeah, and Mike, I think when you look at Clemson, you look at that offensive line. I rate it number 2 in the country. Cade Klubnik, my number 2 receivers in the country. And last year's defense, that was not Clemson's defense normally. I mean, 374 yards per game. They didn't play like you would expect Clemson to play. Tom Allen steps in. He's got 9 returning starters, a ton of talent. Look at the NFL talent they got on the D-line with Peter Woods and Capehart, at linebacker with Woodaz and Brown. This is a loaded defense. I've got Clemson running the table this year. But I think the top contenders are SMU and Miami. Rhett Lashley has done a great job building this team. He's got Kevin Jennings back. His offensive line looks really good. He's got a couple of NFL players in there, and P.J. Williams, Logan Parr, maybe even Addison Nicholas. And defensively, he's brought in some good transfers. They get the big game against Miami at home. Now, they do have to play Clemson on the road, but the fact that they play Miami at home was why I gave them a slight nod over Miami. With Miami, Mario Cristobal's hitting the portal hard. When I was on the phone with him late in the process, we're talking about late May, I was talking to him. He was still looking for players and bringing them in. So they've got talent. Carson Beck should have a really good year. I think he'll have a fine year. The offensive line looks really good. And, last year, their secondary was so banged up, they were dropping their defensive ends in coverage, and Ruben Bain and Messidor. Those guys can be able to attack the ball. Miami's a clear threat. I think if you're looking for a surprise team this year, one nobody's really looking at, Georgia Tech. I mean, Georgia Tech the last couple of years under Brent Key has overachieved. They played the brutal schedule, and they've gone 7-6 and 7-6. Well, this year the schedule lightens up a little bit. I think they could be a factor in that ACC race. I do believe Mike Norvell will have Florida State back in the mix this year. And then one team to keep an eye on, and part of it's due to the schedule, is North Carolina. We got a guy, you might have heard of him before, Bill Belichick, one of the greatest head coaches.
I know his girlfriend well.
Yeah. And he, you look at their schedule this year, they're playing Duke at home, Stanford at home, Virginia at home. They do play Clemson at home. They'll be a dog. But look at the road games: at Cal, at Syracuse, at Wake Forest, at NC State. It's really a manageable schedule. They avoid most of the big boys in play. I think it's a gift for Coach Belichick in his first year. The non-conference slate's winnable. If they knock off TCU in the opener, this is a team that might be favored in maybe 10 of their games this year. So watch North Carolina sneak up on some folks. And especially if Bill Belichick gets them going early, the team will completely buy into that. And they've brought in a lot of transfer portal guys.
I didn't realize till you just rattle that off how easy that slate is for Chapel Hill. That is a gift. Phil Steele is on with us here on JC and Morgan. Phil, you're always kind of ahead of the curve on certain metrics that you kind of fall in love with that help tell the story. Is there anything in the last couple of years that you've gravitated to more, whether it's turnover margin or offensive efficiencies, or something that lately you think is a better barometer to speak on how teams are going to perform during the year?
A new one that I added to the magazine this year is the yards per game, and it really has a good effect. There are teams that maybe outgain their opponents by 50 yards per game, but finish 2-6. Those are the ones that are really under the radar. They didn't get outplayed at the line of scrimmage. They outplayed their opponents at the line of scrimmage. Like, for example, in the NFL, the San Francisco 49ers. Last year, they outgained teams by 59 yards per game, yet they were 6-10 because they were -10 in turnovers, had all these special teams. They had the number 3 or 4 defense in the country yard-wise, but they gave up a lot of points to do the other stuff. So you see those teams rebound the next year. And that might be one of my favorite ones. And the other thing that it really struck me this year, Mike, and it's been going over the teams with the coaches the last 2 years, I'm going more with the continuity of the teams, the ones that use the transfer portal, but only to add to their team. The majority of their players were recruited by that team. Even Ohio State last year, they had some marquee transfer portal guys, but the bulk of that team recruited by Ohio State, played at Ohio State. They were a team coming into the year. And I went with a lot of that. Clemson in the ACC, Iowa State in the Big 12. And you look at Army and Navy last year. Who expected Army and Navy to do what they did? They don't use the transfer portal. And they did well. There's something to be said for that team atmosphere and the cohesiveness.
Heisman Trophy, who do you like?
I'm going with Klubnik. You look at that offensive line, you look at the receiving core, you look at the numbers he put up last year, and then when you throw in the schedule, I've got Clemson favored in all 12 games. So you're looking at a quarterback that could very well be leading the nation in passing at the end of the year, playing for an undefeated team. And that's the mix for winning the Heisman, isn't it, Mike? So I'm going to go with Cade Klubnik at Clemson.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at your list, and I think it's consistent with whatever. Like last year was the aberration. You had the two-way freak, and everybody was enamored by that. And a wide receiver DB got the trophy. Jeremiah Smith is the only guy you have, and I think most people would have in a cesspool of high caliber quarterbacks that are going to be the leading vote getters for this award, unless there's. I don't see an Ashton Genty this year anywhere, so I don't see a running back, and I don't see another wide receiver really that would be in the discussion. So there's a good chance we're going back to quarterback for the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Heisman voters, Mike, probably were thinking, hey, I'd like to vote for somebody that's not a quarterback this year. Well, they don't have that thought anymore. We got one in that wasn't a quarterback, so now I think it goes back to normal.
Phil, in closing, tell everybody how they can get the guide.
Well, I appreciate that very much, Mike. The magazine's 360 pages. I feel it's got 3 to 4 times the amount of information any other magazine out there. It's like getting 136 media guides rolled into one. Everything you need to know about any of the 136 teams. Now, it's only available at 2 locations, Barnes & Noble and Books A Million. Those are the only 2 brick-and-mortar stores you can get it, but they do have plenty of them on hand. They usually start selling out by the end of July, so get to Barnes & Noble or Books A Million, or you can go online at philsteele.com. And when you go online at philsteele.com and order the magazine, I'm going to charge you a shipping charge. It costs to ship things. It's like $10 to ship a magazine nowadays. However, I give you the digital magazine absolutely free when you purchase the hard copy, and the digital magazine gets updated all the way until September. So if any players get lost during the month of August, they'll be circled in the magazine. You'll be up to date. So Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, or philsteele.com.
And how many TVs will be on in the Steele household in a typical college football Saturday?
Yeah, here at work, I got 12 TVs in front of me, Mike. So I'm watching 12 games all day long on Saturday. A lot of Diet Mountain Dew goes into that. It's keeps me active all day long.
The only other person I can think of that would have that type of setup, Ace Rothstein from the movie Casino, the former odds maker back in the day. You run a legitimate business. His maybe not so much, but nevertheless, and you're not killing people, which is a good thing, Phil, because we don't want to see you in prison. You can't put this guide out from Cell Block 9. Phil, we always appreciate it. The tradition keeps on going. We love the guide. We always talk about the guide, and we always love talking to you, my friend. Thank you so much, and we look forward to chatting again soon.
Hey, sounds great. One of my favorite shows I do every year, Mike. So I appreciate you having me on. Thank you, guys. JC, good talking to you.
Thanks,
maybe we'll make the Twitter follow list of that you got in the guide this year. Maybe we can sneak on page like 27 below Kevin Frazier of Entertainment Tonight or something.
I will make sure you're on there next year, no doubt.
I love it. Thank you, Phil. Phil Steele, everybody. Phil Steele of the Phil Steele College Guide. Man, it's we could go on an hour.
Could talk to him for 2 hours.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're in an era, JC, where there are always a few fans of whichever school that believes people in the media and people in this case print media, although Phil's kind of become a little more than just print. They all think you just disrespect their team, you hate their team if you don't tell them what they want to hear. Phil has no emotions. He's a guy in the Midwest. He has no allegiance. He really doesn't care. He just wants information and put this thing out, and that's what it is.
Yeah, I put a thread on our Twitter account, shameless, or X account, shameless plug, number 4 ever CFB. So follow that. You'll
Yes,
see it
please.
out there if you're doing it along. But I put a thread up. What I like about him is he covers his bases, not necessarily with like, oh, I'm always right. He's not ambivalent about anything. But if you notice when you talk to him, you get more credibility when you have the data, which he crunches. He has a formula, a model, whatever you want to call it. When you look at like your basic things and you value certain things, in other words, returning players that have been in the program for a while, he picked up on that trend the last 2 years, right, with Michigan and Ohio State. So he values that. When you explain that, how you arrived at your opinions, when you're breaking it down. And then when you go outside of yourself and you call the people that know their teams the best, the coaches, to pick their brain. How many times did he doesn't even sound like name dropping. It's like, well, when I talked to Billy Napier, here's what he said. And I'm like, that is I wrote that down. I was like,
right.
Oh, Joey McGuire, 6-10 on the road. I wrote Kyle Whittingham says his best O-line in 21 years. Do you know how gold that is?
Right.
Like gold, Jerry, to do it again.
Yes.
I mean, to know that, do you know how many good offensive lines Utah's had?
Mm-hmm.
I know where they recruit. The state of Utah and the sort of let's just say they recruit really good up front. You know,
that's kind of those Polynesian kids.
Yes, I've been to an all poly camp out in Salt Lake City back when I worked for ESPN.com.
Did you really?
And covered that. It was one of the best events ever because it's 72 and nice in Salt Lake City in July. And then Park City, I mean, you have to wear a sweater in July, and it's awesome. But loved that camp. Those kids, they're huge, and they're a bunch of, it's like they're a bunch of linemen, like elite linemen. I love linemen, you know, walking around evaluation wise, light feet, running 4.6 like it's nothing. And they have such a passion for the sport.
Mm-hmm.
So for that was gold. You know, the thing about Miami and their secondary being banged up last year, you know, we just said they were crappy on defense. That maybe gets lost. That kind of those kind of details, man. We don't live in a world where people pay attention to those.
Right.
And Phil Steele does. So, and I'm not surprised he's selling more magazines than ever because he's kind of it. No offense to Athlon or anybody else that's doing a magazine, but that's kind of it, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Again, I'm not here to sell them. They are expensive. No. Not everybody wants to drop 20-something bucks on a magazine, but if you're only going to buy one a year, it's been the way I've gone now for quite some time. And you mentioned some of the nuggets he dropped on the interview, but if you look through the magazine, there's a bunch of stuff. And the beauty about college football is you can have all the info in the world and be as boned up on it as anybody can be, much like Phil is. It's still an unpredictable sport. There's still going to be things that are wrong. You know, obviously we've said on this show a number of times, not many people had South Carolina winning 9 games and being a potential playoff team last year. Not many people thought that Auburn would still struggle in year 2. Not many people thought Oklahoma's offense would be one of the worst we've ever seen in Norman. That's what makes the sport beautiful. Well, yeah, it's true. You did. You talked about the offensive line. I didn't know it'd be that bad. I mean, they were pathetic.
Well, yeah. I mean, what made them terrible, went from bad to terrible.
The injuries
was the injury on injuries to at receiver, losing your top. I mean, you don't have a good offensive line in the SEC, and then you lose your top 5 receivers, and then you have either a true freshman or Jackson Arnold, a redshirt freshman at quarterback. It's a disaster. Everybody is talking about Brent Venables being on the hot seat. I'm not sure that I buy that. There is a new AD coming to Oklahoma, so who knows? But I think they could be the most improved team in college football, or one of them this year, and win 8 games. Because we talked about the schedule earlier. I mean, they never had played anybody like that in the Big 12. I mean, Lincoln Riley last year would have gone 2-10 against that schedule.
Oh, he's having enough problems playing out west in the Big Ten now.
Yeah, his style of play is not I mean, Brent Venables, to his credit, did job number one when he took the job, and that's get the defense. I mean, could you imagine Oklahoma's defense under Lincoln Riley last year if they were in the SEC? It would have gotten brutally ugly. But, he fixed the defense last year, injuries and just some losses up front. Bill Bedenbaugh, the offensive line coach, is one of the best in the country. So they'll be back. I just don't know, if the SEC, which I think they'll do in 2026, flips, stays at 8 and then it flips, So in other words, you'll flip on 7 new teams and they'll keep Texas. That's a little bit then they get Texas's schedule and Texas gets Oklahoma's schedule in 26. And that may be a more realistic breakthrough, but who am I to question Phil Steele?
Well, you dropped a little bomb there, and it's a perfect way to end the show. As we've reached the back 9, if you will, of SEC Media Days. You like most of us caught the address of Greg Sankey and talking about college football playoff and whether or not the SEC goes to 9. These decisions have to be made pretty soon. Just some final thoughts on where you think that is headed.
Yeah, I think it's crazy because you go into those meetings in Destin, Mike, and you think, well, we're going to this auto bid thing with play-in games, and it seems like Sankey and Petiti like it, and blah blah blah. I don't know what happened in Destin, but it looks like there was like a revolt, but with coaches and ADs, because they walk out of that meeting saying we're not going to 9. And they keep making the Big Ten. It's an intellectually dishonest argument about 9 versus 8, and everybody with common sense that's not a homer for the Big Ten realizes this. They're like, well, they need to go to 9. No, they don't. The ACC, maybe. I don't know that wouldn't make some ACC schedules worse if they went to 9 conference games. Not tougher, worse. But when you go. When you talk about that, I think the coaches said 2 things. We want a 5-11, 16-team playoff format with more at-large instead of boxing it into the automatics, because I think they're maybe arrogantly hedging on, well, heck, we'll be better than most of the last year was kind of a weird year, That's A. And then B, we don't want to go to 9 games unless the money is unbelievable. And, we're not just going to do it because, hey, it's hard enough. And we'd have to cancel the SEC schools about 6 years ago when it looked like the playoff was expanding. I think they got the green light to go ahead and schedule up. And just about everybody except Kentucky has, even Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's got, I know Stanford's not good now, but when they scheduled it, a home and home with Stanford, why would you do that if you're Vanderbilt? Why aren't you playing Alcorn State, And so everybody scheduled up. And now it's like, oh, well, that's not how they're going to do it. So I think there was kind of not a reckoning, but an honest conversation. And so what I think happens is they stay at 8. Now, here's the question. And the SEC did this once before when A&M and Missouri came in. 2012 and 2013 schedules were cattywampus. For those that don't know what that means, it's a Southern South Carolina word my mother used to use. It means messed up, effed up, whatever you want to say. It's cattywampus. So that was back then. This time around, they kind of threw it together. Okay, well, Texas should always play A&M and Arkansas, and we'll play all the rivalries, and then who hadn't played in 15 years and where. We'll do that, and then, all right, whatever else, and we'll mash it all together. That's how we ended up with what we had. If they decide to stay at 8 in 2026, the idea is a 1-7 format, Mike, where it's 7 on, 7 off, 7 on, 7 off, or 7-7-7-7. I think they'll do it every year because you don't want to go 2 years without playing Texas and Texas A&M, right? You want to go back and forth. And so they're going to have to completely redo it because Texas A&M and Arkansas aren't going to want to have 2 years worth of games where Texas is sitting on the schedule. It makes no sense. Auburn, Georgia, same way. Tennessee, Alabama, same way. Those games are going away because for TV, this. Florida, Georgia's going nowhere. Texas and Oklahoma's going nowhere. Those are ratings, neutral site ratings, bonanzas. So you keep going down the list. The Egg Bowl's being played. The Iron Bowl's being played. Tennessee, after having to play Alabama every freaking year, that bitter rivalry with Vanderbilt stays. That's their permanent opponent. You keep going on down the list. You got LSU, Texas A&M. They're going to play every year because they fit the red line rivalry they're trying to create with Arkansas and Missouri. That's happening. It leaves South Carolina with Kentucky at the end of the day as permanent. They'll play every year. There's really just no wiggle room, out of it. And so you can't have a schedule where you play Texas is the biggest game on Arkansas' schedule. So is for A&M. You can't have that go away for 2 years. And the reason I say all that, because I didn't say the main point, the SEC is mandating and wants every school to play every other school within a period of 4 years. That's why they don't say, okay, well, you can have 3 permanent opponents or whatever. They want everybody to play everybody home and away within a span of 4 years. And so that's the deal.
I think the fans' appetite is for 9 games in conference. They've never paid more money. They've never paid more time watching their teams on TV, listening to their teams on radio. They want 9. They don't need to see 2 cupcakes on the schedule. I'm going to go back to one of these days. We'll get the glossary on our website. The path of what, JC, for coaches?
Least resistance.
Least resistance. So if you leave it up to the coaches to vote on 9 versus 8, yeah, you're going to have a Nick Saban who, at the time, ran the most powerful program and most successful program on the planet and has confidence that he can play 9 and be very successful. The rest of these guys all know that their jobs are a couple of bad years away from getting fired. So they look at a 9-game conference slate as more losses on their resume, more chances of losing their job, hence not the path of least resistance. If you leave it up to the coaches to make these calls, it's never going to go to 9. If you leave it up to the administrators who see the extra financial benefits, I can go to my ticket office and sell season tickets a little bit easier. A 9th conference game versus a game against, I'm going to use your brother's alma mater again, Western Illinois, the Leathernecks.
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't sell as much. And so I just hope the good of the sport prevails, and the good of the sport is 9. I don't need the coaches to really weigh in on this. With an expanded playoff that is going to be 16 and that is going to be 5-11, I'm very confident in that now. Because once Greg Sankey did the math and said, you know what, that 4 automatic bids, if the Big 10 gets 4 and the Big 12 and the ACC get 2, and I'm maximizing the amount of teams we can get in there. With the 5-11, the maximum number is greater. Hence, I want, it's 2 hences in one show.
Hence.
Mark that down, kids.
Ergo.
And furthermore, and so the SEC now wants the 5-11. It seems like Patini might be saying, I don't know if I want to bet on myself. We all have to bet on ourselves sometimes in life. The SEC is willing to bet on itself. The Big 10, not necessarily so. They might think if we don't have the 4 autos, we might not get 4 in the field.
Yeah, but Patini is also saying, along with everybody in the Big 10, that, okay, we'll do that if they'll go to 9 conference
If the
games.
SEC will go to 9.
That is a Trojan horse, dude.
I know.
Because you got Ward Manuel and that bunch, what they're banking on in the Big 10, which is the reason Indiana bought out a series recently with the powerhouse Virginia Cavaliers.
Yeah.
What they're banking on is nothing changes with the selection process. Right. And let's shove 9 at the SEC and let them slaughter each other. And then when we have our 1980, well, I'll just put it this way. The same poll that robbed Nebraska of a national championship in 1997 when they gave it to Michigan, that same mindset. Well, that Nebraska team would have beaten Michigan by 40 points. I mean, there's no question. Look what they did to Tennessee and Peyton Manning. Anyway, I digress. But they're counting on that same poll, so they're like, well, if 10-2 is better than 9-3, let's shove. Don't tell them, just shove to make them play 9, and then the max they'll ever gets 4, and then we can always have our 4, and and then what will proceed to happen is the 4 SEC teams every year will go back to their rightful place of dominance, and And then they'll start bitching about something else. I've soured on the Big Ten administratively quite a bit. I've never really cared for what they do. Love the fan bases, love the teams, love even the coaches and players in that league. Don't get me wrong, but man, oh man, I think they outsmart everybody. Like when they tried to cancel football unilaterally during the pandemic.
Oh yeah,
and they led the Pac-10, who they were about to bring to slaughter by their nose, to do that too.
Yeah,
I think they think they're smarter than everybody else, and they're really just a bunch of elitist, hypocrite, snob idiots that really have never had the best interest of college sports at heart. And I'm talking about the leadership, the presidents, all that, not fans, not schools. I'm not pulling against Illinois or Ohio State or Penn State or any of you schools in the Big Ten. I'm just saying, everybody wants to vilify the SEC about a lot of things. Most of it's made up bullshit. And a lot of what the Big Ten actually does, right down to the scandals on their campuses at times, is horrific for this entire thing. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. I'll just say the when Sankey ended Destin, which quite frankly, most of the major news comes out of Destin now, to go back to a point you made at the top of the show. When he went ahead and handed out the little pamphlet, this is why our strength of schedule is so much greater. That was him trying to make everybody understand, we'll go to 9 games, but you have to realize our 3-loss team at that point, on the average, is going to be better than many of the 2-loss teams in your league. I'm speaking to you, Big Ten. That was that message. And I don't know if everybody got it. And I don't know if everybody, if it'll resonate with everybody, but I hope it does. And I hope we go to 9, and I will leave it at that. Again, we are powered by Avocare, avocare.com. Promo code Mike Morgan. Save yourself 20%. Also presented by Nest & Wild, the most comfortable mattress on the planet, delivered to your door. nestandwildmattress.com. JC, get everybody up to speed on everything that is this fine program, the network, and everything else going on.
Sure. Yeah, this program and SEC Sunday Night, our new show under the College Football Forever brand with Chief Sports, is available on the Chief Sports app. You can download that for free, Google Play, the App Store. Our podcast version of this show should be up this afternoon. We're doing a lot better with that one, getting it up a little quicker. Got a new method. And you can get that Spotify, Apple, Podbean, Audible, iHeart. We're on, JC and Morgan is on a ton of podcasting platforms. It's everywhere. So you can check us out there. Also, collegefootballforever.com. Follow us on X at #4EverCFB or at Chief Sports Network, and we'll get you to the right place. Mike Morgan is at Morgan on Air, and JC is at JC Sherbert. So we got you covered. Oh, I forgot about Instagram at ForeverCFB. Follow us there on Instagram as well.
You do an outstanding job on that. Quick plug. There's always like a grab bag of random stuff. There's no order or rhyme or reason. It's just like stuff that people would like to taste. It's like tapas, right? It's just one good tapa after another, and then you take a bite of this, and then poof, it's something completely it's Mike Leach wearing a pirate costume. It's something on the Baylor offensive line. You never know where it's going.
The Instagram story is amazing. Yeah, because I try to follow some kind of randomish, and we also got the Chief Sports Net Instagram account that's kind of network wide, and that has a lot more pop culture and stuff. But I'm always, anything interesting about college football that I deem fit will go, and it's a good follow. So hey, and you get to know whenever we come on, guests and highlights, and SEC Sunday Night as well, which is Sunday night today, by the way. So
it's better than following some random Instagram celebrity that's going to give you, I don't know, shots in front of a PJ getting ready to go to Ibiza, and you don't need all that.
You could just follow Britney Spears and be entertained for hours.
Well, that is entertaining in its own right. Please, Britney.
I'm talking about that on another show here coming up. So I can't waste all my material.
No, save a little bit of that for that for sure. All right. Our thanks again to the Mad Dog Phil Molinax. As always, we'll be back with you next week. We're working on kind of an out of left field guest. It's the guy that is the head of the Matador Club, that is the billionaire booster for Texas Tech who was at Big 12 Media Days doing interviews and maybe can shed some light on what the future. You notice we didn't mention money at all this entire show, but he's a pretty intriguing guy for a number of reasons. So we might do that next week. We shall see. For Mad Dog, for JC, it's Mike. Thank you so much for stopping by once again. We've been doing it since 2016, and it's just getting bigger, better, and stronger throughout time. Football season is here, folks. It is absolutely here. We'll see you next week on JC and Morgan.